Awesome. First time I've done this. How you going?
Good, good. All recharged. I took pretty much all the last week off, so yeah, it's been a massive year.
Yeah,
So yeah, just good to be back in the office today, even though I'm only here for a couple of days. But yeah, good to be here and starting to get stuff out there that we've had in the motions for a little while.
yeah, cool.
How
So
about
all
yourself?
the yeah, really good. So yeah, not too bad really. I lost my job last week, so I'm unemployed at the
Get
moment.
out.
No, but yeah, so I'm just
I don't know how you had time for it anyway, mate, with all this backyard stuff you're doing.
yeah. Well, that's half the reason why I lost the job because I was doing this stuff instead of work stuff.
Oh no.
Um, But yeah, I'm really looking forward to this chat because as you've announced on social media, we've got a bit of an announcement, or you've got a bit of an announcement to make. And I thought maybe before you make the announcement, I understand that it's associated with Melbourne Front Yard. So,
Yep.
yeah, I mean, I was there earlier this year crewing for farms, and I was so impressed with the location to start with.
Yeah, I think if I'm honest, I think we've absolutely fell on our feet with Yarra Bend, where we chose to hold it, and we were kind of forced, with not a lot of notice. Thank you to find a new home for something we'd had in the planning. I think for many months, probably close to a year, we were trying to put something together in Melbourne and realised that the destination we'd selected wasn't right. And then Yarra Bend we looked at that and thought that maybe we could make a course there, and sure enough, yeah, we hit a jackpot of a course there. Matty Doobs was kind enough to help us out with doing a fair bit of the reconnaissance there, and putting together. I came up with a route, and he went out and ran it and went, yeah, it's good, but I think we could do it better. And then back and forth a few times, and away we came with a look, obviously, I'm pretty passionate in all things running, and I'm pretty passionate about our backyard ultra courses. And the MelbOURne Frontyard one is hands down now the best course we've got. So,
Mm.
I think the Birdies one's great. The No Time to Die one is pretty kind too, because they're flat and they've got a few different breakdowns in the surfaces. But the good thing about MelbOURne Frontyard is the entire course is protected and sheltered. Well, pretty much the entire course, and it does have a little bit of vert. I think it's 63 meters of vert a lap, which is actually really good for the body because it breaks down the different muscle areas that you're using rather than just constantly going flat. And and no surprise, it went ridiculously far this year
Yeah.
in just its first year, and we only had I think maybe 3.5 months of getting the event out there this year before we could actually host the event. I think we had about 3.5 months of entries opening for it.
Mm. Yeah, and Dubes, speaking of Dubes, he was actually the assist. He ran a bolt, or I think 57 yards he ran.
57, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think I speak for so many of us. It was so proud to see him have just one of those days where just everything came together. And actually, it's funny. I had a chat with Doobs at Wild Dog just last month, and there was a bit of a story there between him and Ben Nichols, because Doobs just he stopped and he looked like he still had some in the tank, and
Mm.
turned out that they had made an agreement, during the very early stages of the race where Matty said to Ben, "Look, if you can help me get to 50, we'll get to 50, and then I'll withdraw and have the assist because you're." Ben Nichols had to work the next day, so he had to get some rest and get home. And they're like, yeah, no worries. And then, 7 hours later, they were still going, and Matty's kind of going, "Oh, well, look, I better bloody, keep up with my pact here," and shook hands because they came in plenty of time still, and both looking oh, obviously tired, but still looked like they had more to go. And
Mm.
but I think that's also a testament as to how good a course it really is. And sure enough, with this announcement, I want to bring some more attention to the event as well. But I also think it's the right course to. I think it's probably, well, certainly out of the ones we've got, and we've got courses. We've got 5 backyard front yard ultras we hold around the country, and they're all got a great reputation of going fairly long. But I think this is the course that could take any of our runners the longest. It is that good. So
Yeah.
now I want to back it and put our money where our mouth is, so to speak, with it.
Yeah, cool. So, I mean, yeah, like I said, I was there last time and it was such a good spot for like the starting corral and everything. It was a huge space. So how many runners do you think you could actually fit in, like as far as the field size goes?
Um, Oh, look, I definitely think we can cater to 300 plus there. Effectively, for those unfamiliar with it, it's an oval. It's a smaller size kind of football oval. So
Mm.
it's not a gigantic oval, but and it has been disused. They are actually looking to reuse it again as a sporting oval. I think they're looking at putting a pitch or something in the middle, but yeah, there's a really good space, and we are actually changing this. Like, we're still getting that same location, but we're changing the setup a little bit this year for 2020 or for 2026, where runners are going to come in one side and then go out the other. So it's going to be more a run through corral, and we're going to have a finish point at one end and a start point a little bit further down, and then all that gap in between is actually going to be the corral, but it's also going to be where people can access either side, their gazebos, the food trucks, the priority sites, which we have at MelbOURne Frontyard, which gives you the closest and quickest access to the corral, and extra toilets, private toilets, etc. And then there's going to be a community and communal area on the other side. So, but
Mm.
yeah, I think, look, we've put in for 300 for approvals this year for this next edition. Sorry, for MelbOURne Frontyard, and I think if we can get close to filling that, well, then I guess we'll reassess moving forward as to whether it can cater for more.
Mm.
The courses are, sorry, the trails are pretty wide for about the first nearly kilometre. But then once you hit that suspension bridge, well, then I guess, we're going to make sure that we can cater to the crowd filtering out by then.
Yeah. So when is the date of Melbourne next year?
Second of May. So
Yeah.
I think we had it pretty much Anzac Day weekend this year, but we've moved it to a week later for next year. And look, it is a little bit strange for us. We actually start it in the middle of the afternoon on a Saturday.
Mm.
Most of our events we start usually on a Friday. We've done that because that's part of our conditions. The sporting grounds are used on Saturday morning for sports. All the surrounding grounds, so it's just too hectic there for us to hold an event on the Friday and into the Saturday, etc. Whereas when we start on the Saturday afternoon, it actually allows all the crowds and the cars to get a lot closer to the village, to drop off their stuff, etc. And there's a lot more parking available then that certainly catered for everyone this year.
Mm.
And then obviously we'll run into Monday and hopefully Tuesday, and whatever history wants to write for us moving forward, well then, we'll be there for that too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I thought the 4 p.m. Saturday start worked perfectly. I didn't think there was any problem with that at all. It was probably good.
I actually, I say it's unique. It's probably not that unique for a lot of other events. I know well, certainly quite a few backyard ultras do start on a Saturday throughout the country. We've just always done ours on Friday, I guess, with the expectation, in the early days that we'd run Friday and Saturday, and then by Sunday we'd kind of all be wrapped up. But
Yeah.
that was obviously 5 or 6 years ago when 40 odd hours was the world record, I think, back then, or certainly was the Australian record. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, we just started doing them all for that, and this is a little different for us. But yeah, I love it too. Anyway, it really makes no difference for us. And to be honest, whether people take the Friday off from work or the Monday off from work, and whatever needs to from there, well, that's
Mm.
just how it is.
Yeah. So, I mean, regardless of the announcement, like I'd expect it to be a pretty hot field as well, just because it's one of the last chances to of running a big total to make the at large, the Australian at large list.
Yeah, definitely. I think if you have a look at all of our events, we try and hold them in that pocket.
Mm,
I think Hurdy's is our first one in March, but obviously the window closes in about August for the at large list.
yeah.
So the timing for this is perfect. The weather's, I think a pretty nice time of year to be running in Melbourne because it's going to be cold enough. Obviously, it usually always is in Melbourne or most of the time, but hopefully before those real winter rains and crappy weather kicks in. But yeah, I think the timing of it should be perfect. And look, our numbers last year or this year we had 67 about 70 or 67 starters, I think, this year, with obviously about 15 or 16 weeks worth of entries being open.
Mm.
Look, we're not too far off that already for next year, so yeah, I certainly expect we'll be in the few hundred for runners, and yeah, I anticipate now that people know just how good this course is with year number one with a small field still going to 58 hours. It goes to show just what another ripper course is on the Australian backyard scene, and just opportunities. Obviously I was on the Australian Backyard Ultra website earlier today, and just having a look at just how many events there are now. I remember when I think we were number 6 or number 7 in Australia with our very first edition of Birdie's Backyard, and
Yeah.
now there's dozens and dozens of them. So
Yeah.
we're not surprised, I guess, now with how much growth there is in the sport, and not just the sport, but this particular niche part of ultra running, and yeah, I just think that this opportunity to have this right, in the heart of Melbourne, we're only a stone's throw literally from the CBD. It's just a few K. I think we're 5K from the CBD,
Mm.
and the location is just, it's incredible. Yeah, yeah, it's a stunning location, stunning setting, and yeah, beautiful course.
Yeah, and even though it's so close to the Melbourne CBD, parking isn't really an issue. Like there's no traffic jams. It's easy to get a spot to load in and stuff like that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was when we were dealing with parks. Actually, that was one of it. All of our mutual concerns, and even when Matty Do went in and checked out the course for us, that was one thing that we looked to try and overcome, and we had a backup plan, which we didn't end up needing to have to use at all, because even with the crowds coming through when we were coming. We were holding the event. Everyone, all the public had really filtered out by then, because most of the city parklands, they fill up in the mornings, and then everyone does their running and their walking, the dogs and whatever, first thing in the morning, and then more often than not by the afternoon everyone's filtered out. But
Mm.
there was still plenty of parking when we were setting up everything, and yeah, all throughout the event. So sure, with numbers growing, that's going to be something that we'll look for moving forward, but we've got plans already on how we're going to tackle that, and there is another big area of parking which we didn't even end up utilising this year. So yeah, I think the access is going to be great, and there's a few little shortcuts to get across to the village as well from some of the other parking areas.
Yeah, cool. Um, do you want to give the big announcement now?
Why not, mate? Yeah, I guess. Look, one thing which I think has stood out like dog's ball, so to speak, is the disparity between the female and the male, I guess, number of runners in this backyard ultra format. And I know it's always been a bugbear of Laz, the guy who's created the backyard scenes of only having one winner each time. And I'm not looking to go against that or anything like that. That's the rules. And I don't want to be one to change that or anything like that. But one thing I'd love to see is more female participation in the backyard ultra scene, because there are some absolute rockets and some guns out there. that are already in the backyard scene, and but certainly in the wider ultra scene, that I'd love to kind of encourage and look to have them come and be part of, experiencing what a backyard ultra is. And what better place to not only just build the prestige, I guess, of Melbourne Frontyard Ultra, but encourage more people to come along, but also do our part in, I guess, exposing the breakdown of the differences between how many female runners and how many male runners we do have at Backyard Ultras. And I'd love to balance it out to get as close as we can to a 50-50 and get parity out there, because the more female runners that are out there, the more exposure they're going to give to women in the sport and women in this genre of our sport, and encourage just, greater targets and even higher participation, but higher results as well. And if you just have a look at what the backyard scene has done with women in the last couple of years, there's been several Australian events that have been won by women. Nashi, just last week, I think it was, or the week before, Margie Hadley's won a few. And then, of course, no one can forget Holly Ranson's record at Dead Cow this year. And if anyone knows Holly, as much as I know she probably doesn't love this format so much because it's not her jam, she is, just another great example of I'm sure she could have kept going. She's just, and still, I think, an untapped resource of where you can get. And, I'd love to see, a new Phil Gore, but in the female scene. I think certainly Holly Ranson's got the potential for that, but there's just so many out there that are up and comers, and I'd just love to see where we can take this. So Ultra Series at Melbourne Frontyard Ultra, we've decided to put up some prize money. We've never ever done prize money at a backyard ultra. I've actually not been too terribly vocal against it as such, because I don't want to take away how special a backyard ultra community and event already is. And I don't think that needs prize money. That's not what I'm trying to do. So what we're looking at doing is this is only going to be applicable to the women. So don't shoot me down out there, fellas. I just want to grow the exposure of this format to this incredible community that we have of potential, world record breakers in the female field there. So we're going to offer $10,000 cash to the woman, or to, if the Australian women's record is broken. Obviously by a woman. They do not have to have an assist by another woman on there. It can be, a fella out there, like as an example, it can be Maddie Doob assisting someone, or Maddie Doob winning and a female assisting, or whatever. It doesn't have to be a women's winner. It doesn't have to be a women's assist. It just, the record currently stands at 61 with Holly Ranson. Obviously, that might change between now and the event day. So it's obviously going to be whatever the standing event record is then. Women's record is then. And look, if two women want to work together, as an example, and they want to get it together and they want to break it, and then they decide to just quit together, we'll just give the 10 grand to the two of them. They can split it up from there. If a woman and a man want to work together and get the record, we'll give the money to the woman. If they want to split it with their running buddy or whatever, that's fine. We don't care. All we want to do is we want to encourage, we just want to encourage the incredible women in our sport just to go further and deeper and harder than they've ever been before. There is one other little topper on this as well. Right. If the world record's broken, we're going to chuck another $5 grand on top of that. So we'll do $15,000 cash, Australian dollars, obviously, to anyone watching from overseas. $15,000 cash if the world record in the women's distance, or the women's best results, best performance by a woman is broken. So, I think that stands at 87 at the moment by Meg Eckert. I think we discussed. So obviously, again, that might change between now and then. But that's what we're looking at. I'd love to encourage other women also to come over from overseas to come and give this a crack, because Melbourne's incredibly accessible to people from obviously New Zealand, Southeast Asia, and even America, with all the direct flights. So if we can get some runners that want to come over and be part of that and give it a crack, that'd be cool too. Potentially we can look at some finer details and maybe saying, look, if they break their national record in doing so, we might have to put a clause in there and say, look, it's got to be above 24 hours or something, but maybe we can come up with something there. That's that's in the works. That's something we can potentially announce a little bit later down the track. But for now, $10,000 if the Australian women's record is beaten, and $15,000 if they then go on and break the women's web record.
Yeah, awesome. So, you've just clarified. It's all about breaking records. 10 grand for breaking the Australian,
Yep,
plus five if the world record gets broken as well.
that's correct. Yep.
Awesome, awesome. So I mean, this should attract women runners from all over Australia.
Well,
With
I hope so. I know there's a great contingent up in Queensland, that follow the scene, all around the country. So hopefully they can share it all amongst them and bring it in. But to be honest, Melbourne, I think, is a pretty untapped scene. There's 5.5 million people living in Melbourne. The backyard scene there is I still think, look, I know it's got the OGs in MelbOURne and MVP and obviously, GV up in Shepparton and whatnot, have been around for a few years, but the numbers of runners at Backyard Ultra still in Victoria or in Melbourne, I think, still have so much potential to grow. So who's to say, we can't get a local runner up and coming. So,
sure.
they're going to start somewhere. We just had a runner at Birdie's Backyard last week who won it in 57 hours, and he did his first ever backyard a few months ago at No Time to Die in Adelaide in 24 hours and went, yeah, all right, I know what this format's about, and just gave up then. He just wanted to get 24 hours as training to see what it's about, and then went on and did 57 hours. So, it's
that was an
hopefully we're
awesome.
giving enough time to announce it.
Yeah, I think he did 59 hours.
59. Sorry, Colin. Sorry.
Yeah, that was an awesome story, seeing how, and it sounds like he did it like he could have kept going for sure.
Yeah, he was easy. And look, Simon with him was, sweet as until that last out, probably hour.
Yeah,
so last hour just went down, and that can
he
change
ran,
an hour.
yeah, he ran a big PB too.
Yeah, I know.
He was 35, I think, before.
He's had a big year, but that's what it takes. We don't know, like, we can have a world record holder here in Australia in the women's scene. We have, I'm going to say, arguably we have, I think, the best backyard ultra scene in the world. We got the biggest ones in the world between Sydney, between Coffs Harbour, between Hurdies, No Time to Die is obviously coming huge, Clint Eastwood, MVP. We got massive numbers at our events. We got more, we'd have to have more in those top five than just about anywhere else in the world. Yeah. And we have such a great platform for the backyard ultra scene that I just think we can be doing more. Look, I might be wrong in the way that we're going about this, to try and get more women to come and be part of this, but this is just something I want to give a go. And if I'm wrong and can be proven otherwise or whatnot, then I'm all ears onto seeing what else we can do to just, I just get a little disheartened, I suppose, where I see like maybe 25% of our field is women in the backyard ultra scene. And, I find it an incredibly appealing format of ultra running. Maybe I am missing something here. Maybe it's just what appeals to blokes in going around and around in circles. but hopefully I can do our part in to just trying to change that disparity in numbers and just bring some runners out of the woodwork that 10 grand in ultra running in Australia is pretty big dollars. It doesn't come around very often.
Mm.
And it's not something I'm gonna be doing in backyards, anytime soon or regularly or anything like that. This is just a one-off that I want to see what we do, and if it works really well and it brings, if we get 40 or 50% of our event team to be women and see some amazing results there for the women in our sport, well then we'll look at going again, I guess. But yeah, let's put this out there. Let's see what we can do, Pato. And we'll see where it lands.
Yeah, cool. Now, just so people are wondering as well, like I know Ultra Series are really accommodating for runners traveling from interstate and stuff like that. So if there are some runners from Queensland who want to come down, they're not going to have to worry too like about bringing down a marquee or anything like that or
Yeah,
anything.
well, look, we obviously don't have a billion of them, but we have about 3 dozen gazebos.
Yeah.
We use generally about a dozen of them for our event setup. For the catering viewing. You might have seen it No Time to Die, which is how we're looking at setting up MelbOURne Frontyard. We'll have a bit of a catering area. Then we have merchandise and first aid and aid stations and timing, etc. But then we also have a whole heap of communal gazebos. And then on top of that, we also try and cater as much as we can to interstate runners with gazebos, tables. We have a limited number of eskies. We've got a heap of stretcher beds and pods. Thanks to the Australia 6-day Ultra, went in and bought a heap of pods that they've kind of collabed and donated to Ultra Series, or we use for that event and use for our backyard ultras as well. So sleeping pods where you can have stretcher beds in there, so that during the event, if you want to change, you got some privacy from that. They just fit off the back of the gazebos. We got all that sort of stuff that we can help as much as we can, so that those that want to travel for interstate and overseas, that is just a service we try to offer because we have the equipment. So rather than you being forced to buy or have to worry about doing it, this is something we just offer pretty much all our events for interstaters or for overseas. So if you're from Victoria, you're going to have to fend for yourself in that part. But for those that want to travel, all we'll do is get you to reach out to us, and we'll do what we can to accommodate.
Yep, cool. Now, I don't want to be controversial, but with social media and comments these days, you can be sure that there'll be some people commenting, what if it's a trans woman who breaks the record?
Well, I don't know if there's look, that's a great question, and you've probably thrown that at me. Look, without being an ass or anything like that, and I actually have a very good trans mate, and I think in this sense, for when cash money's involved and there isn't actually a segment for trans, or for that, it's going to have to be female born, or born as a female, and that's what the cash money is going to have to go towards, just because I don't want to be an arsehole in saying, and I'm not meaning to, but I also want it to be fair when it comes to, the pointy end of the event. Well, it needs to be fair for that sort of things involved. And, potentially when we even have event registrations where we can offer, see, our registration system doesn't even allow you to choose anything other than male or female on there, which I hope that comes with the times down the track, but that's a whole conversation for another day. But in this part, it's going to have to be born as a female, run as a or the results will need to come as a female. You have to enter as a female or a male on there, but I certainly think in this sense when, such a huge amount of prize money's been put up for offer, that we've got to be loud and clear with that up front. And thanks for bringing that to the attention, because I hadn't even put any thought to it, because it's not something yet that's huge in certainly the backyard scene. I haven't come across it, but yeah, surely that's going to come out sooner rather than later. So.
So probably it's not such a controversial thing to ask, but I've heard some people say yes and others say no. But what do you think? Do you think that women are at a physical disadvantage compared to men in the backyard ultra format?
I think when you're comparing a male to a female in any sport, I don't think it's a fair comparison. So no, I don't think a female is at a disadvantage to a male in a backyard ultra. What I do think is disadvantageous is when you don't have a male section and a female section. And that's my opinion, right? It's always been my opinion. That's why with a lot of our backyard ultra events, we honour the top 3 males and the top 3 females.
Yeah,
because that's just how we like to see it, and we always, with our results, we always put it up there, whether it's a female or a male, and what position male and what position female, etc., and what position overall, because obviously the overall is what goes into all the stats and goes into the world stats, and that's how excuse me, that's how it's looked at. But I'm not particularly fancied for not having 2 different categories. But again, we run the backyard series under someone who's created this amazing phenomenon of a series that runs almost flawlessly, and in all the events that I'm part of, the format of this event is easily the most friendly. Yeah. Spectator wise and excitement and energy wise of any sort of ultra running format I've ever been involved in. So everything's going to have its own little flaws, and there'll be big flaws for some people and little flaws for others. But yeah, in that side of things, it's nothing that I can change, so I'm not really going to concern myself with making sure my opinion's heard loud or clear or anything like that. All I want to do, which is what we can change, I think, is try and encourage more females to come and be involved in it. And look, potentially that is part of the disparity of it, and going, well, for some people it is an issue, and because they're not effectively judged equally on it, maybe they're judged equally as far as Laz is concerned, but not equally as far as sex is concerned. Maybe that's why the disparity is there, that there's not the same proportion of males and females. Look, I guess we're probably normally about 40-60 or 45-55 with all our other events, females to males. Where backyard ultras it's a huge difference. We're probably lucky to get 25% sometimes. So
yeah,
and if this is something we can do to encourage that, well,
yeah, I'm surprised because backyard ultras, they're so social and they're such safe spaces. They're basically the park run of ultra running. So yeah, I don't understand why there's such a big difference as well. One thing though, you've probably heard this before, is that men have an advantage is that they just go to the toilet anywhere, you know what I mean? But girls really do need toilets. I go about twice a yard.
Yeah. Look, I guess being such a public location, this one, birdies, you can, blokes certainly can go anywhere, and with this one being so public, you can't really, even as blokes, can't really go anywhere and everywhere. But a really good thing about this course is there are lots of toilets. Well, there's not a stupid amount of toilets, but there are toilets around the course that are pretty well placed throughout the event. So you can go. There's one right after after the starting crowd. There's obviously plenty in the village. There's one right after the starting corral that you can go to. Well, there's actually more than one. There's a couple, and as the event grows, we'll add more to that section. And then there's some more at about the 4K mark, 4 or 5K mark as well to go to. And just trying to think off the top of my head, I think there is another set out on course there as well. So,
Yeah.
but look, certainly that is something we probably need to look at and take note of in more parts. We might even need to put some more there's a little cross section that you kind of go to. We might even need to put some more there next year. So if numbers are going to grow and require that. So, but yeah, it's definitely something which I've had feedback from in the years, in past years, that it's something that we need to improve on. And we added some of the herdies over the other side of the oval a few years ago, the lake, sorry, a few years ago, and even in their starting village, I think we added about another 40 or 50% of toilets this year at herdies, as an example. And the same with No Time to Die than what we have in previous years, because toilets are they can be a game changer for events, and particularly for the women as well. So it's just not quite as easy for them. So it's certainly something that will continue to keep at high attention and to improve and grow on. And for us to throw another few toilets out there, is a very small cost for a lot of people's games. So
Yeah. Have tickets gone on sale?
they have. Yeah, look, we opened up probably I'm going to say a month and a half ago. I'm a bit unfamiliar with timing on that at the moment, probably in May or June, actually. So, yeah, time is flying by. But, yeah, and look, we're nearly, like I said, we're nearly already at last year's numbers. So if you just go to Melbourne FYU for Frontyard Ultra, so melbournefyu.com.au, you can get it there, or just the ultraseries.com.au site, or hopefully you can post some links on here as well. Yeah, they're going to be on sale until either we're sold out at our 300 that we've got conditional approval for, or the week leading up to the event.
Yeah, cool. But yeah, like I was saying before, like they're basically the parkrun of ultra running. So, and I think sometimes some people might feel a little bit, not just girls, but guys as well, maybe they hear about all these people running for 60, 70, 80 hours. I think sometimes people are a bit scared of dipping their toes in because they know they're not able to run that far. Whereas it's a celebration, like as you guys do it so well. Everyone who finishes, doesn't matter if they finish after 1 yard or two, they're all celebrated and acknowledged as doing something that they've probably never running a distance PB, probably first time they're running anything like this.
Yeah, look, I guess certainly with putting this prize money, we're maybe only talking to 5% of the women's run, maybe 10%, of the women's runners out there in the sport, or in and about the sport. I think people can realize or forget, forget to realize that these people all started somewhere, and they didn't go straight from 0 to 50 yards or to 60 yards. They started with a 10-yarder, or they started. See, the other thing I think a lot of people forget is 3 yards is a half marathon.
Yeah.
3 hours and it's all over and done with for some runners, but that's still a half marathon.
Yeah.
Now, half marathon compared to people out there running 5K park run is massive.
Yeah.
That's a massive jump up in distance. So, the beauty of a backyard ultra, and I am very proud in how we try to embrace every single runner as much as we can, and certainly every distance that people finish at, is that everyone has their own goals. Everyone can achieve their own distances that they want to get to at these events, and you don't have to be in the top few percent to be celebrated. A backyard, the backyard ultra format is such a beautiful thing where the only person you're actually really running against is yourself.
Yeah.
And the only person stopping you from going further is yourself. So, with the exception of the winner, obviously, But I love the format. I don't know how many I've been involved in now. But I know there's going to be dozens and dozens and dozens more because it's such an exciting format. And undeniably the best is yet to come.
Mm.
We were I remember really clearly when Kev Matthews and Phil Gore broke the Australian record at 47 and 48 hours back at Hurdy's. And they weren't too, I can't remember what the world record was then. I think it was in the 60s, but it quickly went up to 75, I think, with John Stocker and
Mm.
whatnot. And but now to a Meg Eckert's done 87, in the women's, and just where it's gone from only a few years ago to where it can be. And now, was 100 ever gonna get broken?
Yeah,
And now the sky's the limit. Can 200 get broken?
yeah, yeah,
Who really knows where it's going to be? And look, the sport is still absolutely at its infancy. I truly, truly believe that this format of ultra running is so at its infancy. And look, it's probably not going to go forever because everything has its phases or whatever. But right now, it is still, I think, so small compared to what it is. The numbers of backyard ultras in Australia realistically has probably tripled in the last 3 years. So,
yeah,
yeah, where it can go to, and what the possibilities can be is mind-boggling, I think.
yeah. Hey, it's lucky you had that. You organised that documentary maker for that Hurdy's year, where because that doco on YouTube, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, it's really good having those documentaries. Otherwise, these races, they're just a memory now for the people who were there.
Yeah, actually, it's funny. We're probably overdue a backyard ultra doco. I know that particularly when the birdies one came out, it was still pretty new and fresh for everyone. And once that came out, and then we followed it up with Phil and Kev's one on at Hurdy's. But then there was quite a few docos that came out, and I think they almost all told a relatively similar story about the backyard ultra format. But maybe it's time to throw something in, and maybe MelbOURne Frontyard's the event where we can do something like this and mix it up. Let's look at it in a whole different light.
Yeah,
And let's not necessarily celebrate the winner, but celebrate the stories behind why you're out there running, why this format has appealed to you. We all know what the format is now, but why is it appealing? Why do you want to give something like this a crack? And I love the stories of what running so far does outside of the event.
yeah,
I love mentally what it gives. Like I haven't been running a lot lately, but I went for a run with my wife on the weekend in a really amazing part of Perth that I haven't been for a long time, in the mountains or in the hills here. And I don't know, I just had felt like I had so many epiphanies because it just opens your mind to all these ideas that came back from like 5 or 6 or 7 years ago that I'd had on what I wanted to implement and do, and just what running does for me. When you run, it's just so cleansing, and that just does so much outside of that running event there and then. It just has so many repercussions, and
no,
and
it's such
yeah.
a good way to just clear your mind and really think about things that are happening in your life. And when you get home from a run, it just feels like you just feel good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. My body wasn't telling me that, but certainly my mind was very grateful for getting out in the hills. I've entered a run later in the year with my wife over in Spain because we're going over for a mate's wedding.
Awesome.
And they're all doing a running event the weekend beforehand, which we can't because it falls on a weekend that we have an event in Perth. So we've entered one the following weekend, and it's 41K, but it's got something like 4,000 meters of vert, and
Yeah.
it's going to slaughter us in our current conditions. So, yeah, we thought it's time to get out there and actually start doing maybe a little bit for ourselves in preparing so we don't die.
Have you got any more backyard ultras in you as a runner?
Oh, look, I'd really love to give one a proper go. I mean, my best is 18. I think I've done it maybe a couple of times. I think 18 at Hysterical Carnage,
Mm.
and I tapped out. 19 at Birdies, but I timed out on the 19th there. Um, Look, that's certainly nowhere near what I think I could do in form, but I'm 20 kilos overweight, over running weight at the moment of what I was about 5 or 6 years ago. I work too much at the moment, but hopefully that balance is starting to turn the circle a little bit. We do have some more staff now working for us, and I do, I've kind of hit some lows in recent weeks of being overworked and not looking after myself. So running is certainly one of those things. And look, I'd love to have a really good crack at a backyard ultra. It wouldn't be one of ours, just because I'm too emotionally, I guess, invested in our events. But I do love to travel, so probably a good excuse to go somewhere, maybe one in New Zealand
Yeah,
or something like that. So, but yeah, I don't know. One day I'll hopefully have a good crack in the next couple of years and give something. Look, I'm nowhere near up to the standard of what these other guys are, but maybe I can get into the 30s or
yeah.
maybe even stretch to 40 a
Awesome.
stage. I used to be a good runner back in the day, but we'll see.
Yeah,
I had something I was probably running from back then. Maybe I don't have that now.
yeah, yeah. Now, you did mention to me on the phone before, and you haven't brought it up, so I'm worried that I'm not meant to bring it up, but I'll bring it up anyway. Is there a discount code for people who?
100%. I nearly brought it up earlier, but I thought we'll leave it towards the end.
Yeah,
Look, we want to give everyone that is tuned into this for the next week 25% discount. If you haven't already entered, sorry if you guys have, but this is something that's been growing and we're just been waiting for the right time. 25% discount on the entry to the MelbOURne Frontyard Ultra. To enter the code, which Pato will put up in the comments, I guess, will be BUP25, all capitals. So, and obviously numeric 25. So BUP for Backyard Ultra Podcast and the number 25. And you'll get 25% off your entry on there. You will see, which something we haven't brought up because it is a little unique to this event. Because we're in parks, national parks, we do get quite a decent charge for putting up gazebos. So we're allowed X amount as part of us, but everyone has to either pay for a communal space or pay to bring their own gazebo. And even if you are going to use one of our gazebos, effectively, you're still bringing your own gazebo. We can't discount that, unfortunately, because we're effectively just passing on the park. But our entries from the MelbOURne Frontyard are a bit cheaper than what our other events are to try and counteract that. And then again, you're going to get 25% off anyway, which is going to cover a fair bit of that too. So, but yeah, Backyard Ultra Podcast 25 or BUP 25 is the code, 25% off. And we're going to do that for a week. So we'll do that until the 26th of August, midnight Melbourne time, so Australian Eastern Standard Time. That code will be valid but only until then.
all right. And just so we're crystal clear, the 25 discount is for anyone, not just
Anyone,
females.
males or females, trans, anyone. Yeah, we want to open it up to everyone because look, let's be honest. These events only go as far as what your support crew or what your running buddies or whatever can do. And you might not necessarily be running with another male or another female or whatever. So we just want to encourage everyone to come along and be part of, excuse me, and be part of it and bring whoever you need to kick ass and hopefully let's see some records broken and if not, let's have a bloody good time whilst we're doing it and experience an incredibly beautiful part of Melbourne, which I'll be honest, I had never actually been to Yarra Bend National Park before. Didn't even know it was actually a national park right there in the city centre. So it's
Yeah.
actually designated as a national park. So,
Yeah.
and it is like it is legit right there. You'll see there's one of the photos in the course where you're running across the bridge. There's the CBD right there in the
Yeah.
background.
It's a
So,
really good view.
oh, it's just an incredible location. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Cool. Shall we just end with the announcement one more time?
sure, mate. $10,000 cash Australian dollars. If the Australian women's record at the time is broken, so it currently sits at 61, which is Holly Ranson's time. And then if you go on further and break the world record, then there's another $5,000 in the kitty on that. So what this could potentially do is if you're a really good runner and you've got one of your other great running mates that is up there already, male or female, you could potentially incentivize them to come along and run it with you and say, look, if we get to there, here's a few extra bucks in the kitty, or if we then go on and break the world record, you take $5,000, I'll take $10,000 or something like
Yeah.
that. But look, I don't care with the strategies. That's not for me to pick and choose how that plays out. But and I don't really mind how that does. It could be 3 or 4 people working together to get up there. I think that'd be magnificent. Imagine we get 4 women win and finish MelbOURne Frontyard, let's say even on 65, if that's where it sits at the time, and all 4 women, and we give them $2,500 each. I mean, how cool would that be?
Yeah.
So, I'm really proud of the women we have as ambassadors in Backyard Ultras. But I think we need more. And I really want to encourage them all. I know Margie's coming over. I really, really hope Nashi's going to come down for this. I'm speaking of those two because I know I'm personally, obviously, I know Holly. We're both Riverlanders, so I spoke to Holly and she swore at me saying it was way too soon to even bring this up after Dead Cow Gully.
Yeah.
So, but I want, I hope Fiona Hay. I love great mate Fiona Hayvice over from New Zealand. I'd love to see her come over and be part of it too. So, and I guess that's the one thing I probably need to clarify, which maybe we need to work out, is what if let's say Fiona comes over and breaks the Australian record. I know it's not the Australian record, but what are the rules and terms going to be there? That's something we'll probably have to put in the fine print, because obviously we want to encourage women in the sport. We're floating this here as the Australian record. Maybe with the Australian record, we put it that it's got to be an Australian that breaks it, but the women's world record could be anyone. Anyone could take the 15,000. In fact, I think we'll set it as that. But potentially what we could do is if they break their national record, maybe we'll work it out here and there. We give them $1,000 on top, $1,000 cash if independent, if they don't take out the 15,000. Maybe we give them $1,000 cash if they break the national record that's over, say, 24 hours. So,
Cool.
Maybe we'll do that. I've just put my foot in my mouth now. We'll do that as an extra added little option.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess there'll be some questions that we haven't thought of as well. So I'm sure anyone, if they want to find out more, they can shoot you a message or.
Absolutely. Look, I'm going to put it on the socials. I'll put it on the MelbOURne Frontyard Facebook page for now, which I think shared to our Instagram as well. But I'll put it on the Facebook page, MelbOURne Frontyard Ultra. Search it on there. I'll announce it on there as well. After this, you got the exclusive, and then any questions from there, I'm sure will flow through, and we'll clarify it as it goes through. But it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty black and white. I'm sure there'll be some finer details that are coloured in between, but we'll nut them out and iron them out as they go along. And anyone that knows me knows I'm very transparent and honest in what we do. So we'll do whatever we can to make this run as smoothly and as fairly as possible. And we will have scrutineers on the course as well to make sure everyone's doing the right thing. When prize money's involved, I'm very, very conscious of that. There'll probably be some other little conditions in that sense. We'll work them out as it progresses. So thanks, Pato. Thanks for having us on, and thanks for jumping at the opportunity to bring it up.
Yeah, thanks so much for offering to come on. It has been awesome. It's always good to chat, and I'll see you at Melbourne.
Indeed, I might be there too.